Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Housing and Real Property Subcommittee meeting. Today is, I think it's the 15th. Yes, it's the 15th. It is 2:31 p.m. And we have 5 bills that we need to get through today. 424, 687, 964, 970, and 1408. We will start out and we'll take them each in numerical order. The first bill is HB 424. This is a Montgomery County housing bill, and it's just simply making some minor alterations in the bill. Ben, if you could explain what HB 424 does, I certainly would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So for HB 424, this is a Montgomery County bill that had a unanimous delegation vote. The sponsor is favorable. There's no fiscal impact. The submitted testimony was favorable, including from the Montgomery County Office of Intergovernmental Relations and Greater Washington. What the bill does is right now under state law, the Montgomery County Housing Opportunity Commission is required to hold certain hearings and information in newspapers. HB 424 repeals duplicative requirements that require the Housing Opportunities Commission to hold a hearing for proposed affordable housing development before the starting of the formal development review process. And this approach per the sponsor was taken in accordance with the alignment of priorities towards expediting and making affordable housing more affordable.
And there are no amendments. Is that correct, Ben?
That's right.
Move favorable.
Thank you. Is that motion favorable? Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on HB 424? Seeing none, all in favor of HB 424 signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition to 424? Very good. This bill will receive a favorable recommendation from the subcommittee. We will now go to HB 687. HB 687, ladies and gentlemen, you've already heard this bill previously. This is a training bill, a board member training bill, and it is identical to the one that we passed out statewide. The reason why we have the Charles County bill here is the Charles County delegation is fearful that the statewide bill may not come out, and they want to make sure that they have their own board member training bill. You've heard it before. This bill has no amendments, and it is for board member training. Is there a motion?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on 687? Hearing none, all in favor of HB 687 signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition to 687? Seeing none, that bill will receive a favorable report
Mr. Chair, I believe Delegate Baker has his hand up.
Oh, Delegate, I didn't see that. I'm so sorry, Delegate Baker. I didn't see your hand.
You're on mute.
Continue.
I'm a no.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I apologize, Delegate Baker. I just did not see your hand. I'm sorry. All right, that we will now go.
You were up to past 1 a.m. this morning. I know you're a little tired.
Well, let me tell you the truth. I went to bed at 3 and got up at 6.
You're tough. Good job. Good job.
You're tough. You're very strong.
We will now move on to HB 964, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill is a bill referencing landlord prospective tenants residential leases. The bill is specific to criminal histories and looking backwards in terms of criminal histories, in basically kind of like checking the box in rental applications, much like we do now with job applications in the state and in the federal government, quite frankly. This is one of those check the box type of bills. from for rentals. And Ben, if you could go through some of the amendments on the bill, I certainly would appreciate it, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pulling it up. Okay, so the subcommittee members should have received a copy of this just maybe a few minutes ago, but the version is final for the amendments for HB 964 that are before you now. As Chair Holmes mentioned, this concerns tenants and their criminal history generally. When we look at the bill and how it's been amended, the first part is it's adding that a violation of the act makes it an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice. But specifically, that provision about the unfair, abusive trade practice relates to actions by landlords and the criminal history of tenants when they're applying for to be considered as tenants and to be on a lease with a landlord. So what this does is it adjusts and alters a number of provisions related to criminal history for these types of applications. The bill, as you can see, it provides that a landlord may not require prospective tenants to disclose any criminal history in an application for a lease. However, they can require tenants to disclose whether they're required to register as a sex offender under federal or state law. The next part of the bill is it provides that the landlord can, so that's for the disclosure, okay? Just because it might seem like it's saying different things or similar things. That first part is just for what the landlord's requiring a prospective tenant to disclose. Subsection B is the landlord on their own reviewing or requesting a third party to review more than 5 years of criminal history of a prospective tenant. And then there's one thing to note, there's a tenant screening report, a reusable tenant screening report, which is a form that is provided under current law where tenants, if they want to have their whole criminal history compiled and use it as like a single uniform document to share to multiple different landlords in their applications, that it consolidates that and makes that easier for them. So accordingly, it changes that to 5 years because part of the tenant screening report includes 5 years of criminal history. So that's why there was a corresponding change to 8218 there. Next, it provides that a landlord may not publish or cause to be published statements that would reasonably discourage tenants with criminal histories from applying for a lease. However, this does not apply to the publication of statements that are required by federal law. There's considerations about public housing authorities and things like that with that amendment. And then the last part in subsection D here that we haven't covered is that a landlord that denies the lease application shall provide the individual with physical or written document providing their basis.
Thank you, Ben. Does anyone have any questions about the amendments on as discussed? May I get a motion, please?
Move amendments. Move favorable.
And second, I see a second as well. Any discussion on the amendments for HB 964?
Chair.
I heard a voice. I can't see the hand, but I heard a voice.
It's Delegate Naraki, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm just trying to understand. So the amendments, do they now take the look back to 5 years for the landlord? I just want to make sure I'm understanding that. I believe it was 3 originally. Is it now 5?
That is correct.
Okay. I do have a question about that. So there was a bill a couple years ago then I believe Delegate Sidnor, now Senator Sidnor, had that's current law that allows for occupational licenses like barber's licenses and things like that for there to be a look back of 7 years. And I can understand where we might differentiate between certain types of crime, but we're talking about sex offenders in particular here, particularly child sex offenders. I don't know if I'm personally, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with 5. I'm not sure why we would kind of differentiate when we're talking about someone's barber license versus this to look back, particularly with child sex offenders.
Well, Ben, sex offenders, let's talk about that sex offender portion, Ben, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have and what Delegate Naraki was mentioning, I believe that's like with job applications, there's the ban the box equivalent perhaps where they have something language that's similar about that on criminal history. So that goes to whether you're requiring, and that might be similar to the A1 here, which is a landlord may not require, which is similar to maybe an employer may not require prospective tenants to disclose criminal history in the application for release. There is the exception for that part, that a landlord can require a prospective tenant to disclose whether they're required to register as a sex offender.
And that's what I thought too. I just wanted to make sure, Ben, but okay. Did that kind of explain it, Naraki?
It does, Mr. Chair. I still have concerns though, particularly when we're talking about really heinous crimes. If we're able to look back for someone that's, becoming a cosmetologist or a barber or something like that, and not that we shouldn't be able to look back for that. I think we should, but particularly if someone's going to live next door to you, I think it's even more imperative to be able to look back for some of those really heinous crimes beyond that 5-year mark, as Senator Sidnor's bill allows for, what's now law, not bill, but it's the law, to look back for some of these types of crimes. So that's just my thoughts there on that.
I do appreciate it. Any additional discussion on the amendments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Now, just so I get this straight, the review of the history of a potential tenant, I certainly would have the ability to check on other people who have rented to him. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. You can look back, yes, on criminal history.
Well, I can check verbally with previous landlords. Is that correct?
I am not sure. I don't know how to answer that question. Talking verbally back to other landlords, the bill isn't discussions with previous landlords, just like in some rental conditions, you sometimes talk to persons, references, personal references, and the bill doesn't specify anything about speaking to personal references either.
So can I or can I not?
The bill doesn't say anything relevant to,
Okay.
it's silent on that particular topic, unless you can pull something up there, Ben, that says something different than what I'm explaining.
Okay. Done.
Okay. All righty. We're on the amendments
Mr.
now.
Chair,
Yes. I apologize for all of those. I can't see hands being raised, so please voice yourself.
it's myself and then Chair Haley has a question.
Yeah, I wanted to go back and I have a question really. I don't know the answer to this. Maybe the council does, or maybe we can find out later on about the sex offenders, because
Right.
I believe that we have a sex offenders registry that's like accessible to the public all the time. It's just it's a website. You can just go on and look up. Isn't that true?
I believe it is as well. And it's been that way for
And it
several
doesn't,
years.
there's no statute of limitations on it. It's permanent, as I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Ben, can you expand upon it if you are aware?
I'm somewhat familiar with that, but that may be the case that those records go for beyond a certain period, but that doesn't necessarily relate to A2 about requiring tenants to disclose whether they've been required to register as a sex offender.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but I seem to recall the same thing that Delegate Healy does in terms of that information being publicly available. Having
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Long.
Thank you, sir. I've been trying to chime in. Just I want to make sure I'm clear, because I know Delegate Naraki was referencing the sex offenders not having to disclose. I believe, I'm not sure if I'm wording his question, rephrasing his question correctly, but in my understanding that in perpetuity, sex offenders weren't even able to not disclose at any point under any period of years, 5, 7, whatever. They had to always disclose if they were a registered sex offender. Is that correct, Ben?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
so I'm not sure exactly how that works, Delegate Long, but the best I could answer that would be this type of law that's before us now is related or similar to other states. And so I think to that extent, those other states may have provisions that are similar to the one you saw about requiring tenants to disclose if they're sex offenders.
And I don't want to delay this bill because I want to get this, moved, but it's a very important conversation. But I just want to make sure I'm clear. So as of now, how this bill is currently written, sex offenders are not required to check the box, or they have to.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
okay, so a landlord may require a prospective tenant to disclose whether they are required to register as a sex offender. So
Okay.
that's, yeah, yeah.
So it's if
I would offer amendment to think that we probably should or have it done on the Senate side to make sure that they have to disclose in perpetuity. I think that would be important. But
let's do this. Let's see if we can get some additional clarification on this, and we'll come back after the second floor session on this particular bill.
Oh,
or if you want to move it, Mr. Chair, we can perhaps
we can do that.
just deal with this in the Senate.
There is a motion favorable for the amendments.
There's a question, Mr.
There is a question.
Yep, Mr. Chair, sorry.
I can't see the hands.
Sorry, it's Delegate Naraki, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And as I understand it, I believe that there are some sex offenders that do not register for life and do come off the registry at some point. So I would like to have some clarification on who those are and where those time periods are and things like that, because I believe that some are not on the registry for life.
All right, hang on 1 second.
Mr. Chair, I can.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, okay, so in Delegate Naraki, that's right. So this is only for sex offenders who are required to register as a individuals who are required to register as a sex offender. My understanding as well is that depending on the type of sex offense an individual commits, it may not be for life. It may be for a certain period of time. And then, of course, you're no longer required to register, and then therefore you would no longer have to be required to disclose. Yeah.
And I'm looking at something here now in reference to how long does registration last for sex offenders. And there's 3 different tiers here. There's tier 3, which is a lifetime registration. Tier 2 is 25 years, and tier 1 is 15 years. Perhaps what I can do, ladies and gentlemen, is as suggested by Delegate Long, make some amendments when we take this thing over to the Senate side, as opposed to holding things up for crossfire. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So there is a motion and a favorable on the amendments. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the amendments? Seeing none, the bill is amended, please. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on the amendments? And please voice it. I can't see all the digital hands. Seeing no hands on the bill as amended, all in favor of HB 964 as amended signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
There are 2 oppositions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will get additional clarification on that, on this discussion. Moving now to the final bill of the day. This is HB 1408.
Oh,
Yeah,
did we
and
skip
one
970?
one. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip one?
970.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, yes. Yes, okay. I guess I'm trying to get rid of you guys. HB 970. HB 970 is a bill referencing rental licenses and rental license increases. And there is one amendment on this bill. And Ben, if you could describe the amendment for us, please, I certainly would appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, this is about rent increase prohibitions. The sponsor is favorable with amendment. There's no fiscal impact. The bill is for the required notice of rent increases under Section 829 of the Real Property article. Maryland, the Maryland Realtors and Maryland Multi-Housing Association had testimony that they wanted clarifying language, that the prohibition on increasing rent if notice was not provided would be more defined about what type of prohibition that would be, so that it wasn't ambiguous or could be misconstrued to be for the entire life of the tenancy or something like that, as opposed to just for that term. So that's what we see before you here in C. It says a landlord that violates the section, which again is about the notice for rent increases, may not increase the tenant's rent for the lease term for that notice of the increase in rent was not adequately provided.
And this was in conjunction with the required requests from the Maryland Realtors, et cetera, because they wanted to limit it to the term of the lease. And that's what this amendment does.
Okay.
That's right.
Any discussion on the amendment? Can I get a motion, please?
Move favorable.
Second. And any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The bill is amended, please, as a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all in favor.
Mr. Chair, I believe Delegate Baker has his virtual
Oh,
hand up.
I'm sorry, Delegate Baker, go ahead.
I had it up, but you answered the question, so I didn't take it down. But I
Oh,
didn't.
okay,
It's
great,
down.
great. I anticipated your question, Delegate Baker. Therefore, all in favor of HB 970 signify by saying aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposition? Fantastic. That bill will receive a favorable report from the committee. And now we get to the final bill of today, HB 1408. And HB 1408, ladies and gentlemen, is a bill that is referencing a process that is known as wholesaling. Wholesaling is a pretty popular way to purchase property that is in most cases not on the market. And what happens is someone will write a contract for the purchase of a property and then take that paper, that's what they call it, take the paper and then resell that paper to someone else at a higher increase to purchase that property. And what this bill does, 1408, it just provides a notification to the seller that the person who's doing the wholesaling is in fact a wholesaler. And that's all that's what this bill does. And Ben, if you could explain, please, the amendments to the bill, and after you explain the amendments, put into your own words what you think the bill does as well, in conjunction with what I have already said.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that was right. It's, again, just so it's extra clear for everyone, this is for the sale of owner-occupied properties where there are wholesalers, okay? And what's going on, or what the problem the bill tries to solve, the situations where either someone is entering into a contract of sale only to assign that contract later for a fee, or someone's purporting to be the owner of the property without actually holding the title, and they're entering into a contract of sale for the property and assigning that to somebody else. What happens when this is going on and it's not disclosed, and either the person who wants to be the buyer and is working with the wholesale seller, or the person who wants to be who's trying to purchase the home and is the wholesale buyer. The problem is that there's either the wholesale seller who's purporting to be the owner doesn't actually have title, or the wholesale buyer, perhaps in the process of working with someone who's trying to sell their house, an owner occupied house, they either choose to not proceed with the sale for whatever interests they have, it's no longer something they're interested in, and it leaves the owners of the property or the real legitimate interested purchasers of the property in the wind. So that's what's going on here. There's two parts for it. The one part is for the wholesale seller having to disclose that before entering into a contract of sale that they are disclose in writing to a prospective buyer that they hold an equitable interest in the property and may not actually be able to convey the title. And then we have the same type of provision for a contract of sale. An owner of a residential property may not rescind a contract of sale to a wholesale buyer without penalty at any time before closing if they didn't provide notice in accordance with the section.
Thanks, Ben. Any questions on the amendments, or may I get a motion on the amendments, please?
Move favorable.
Is there a second on the amendments? I do have a second. Any discussion on the amendments? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone in opposition of the amendments? Seeing none, the bill is amended, please. Motion, please.
Move favorable.
Second.
Seconds? Very good. Any questions on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all in favor
Oh,
of,
and Delegate Baker.
oh,
has
I'm
the
sorry.
hand
I'm sorry, Delegate Baker. I'm not trying to ignore. I just can't see you. That's all. Go ahead, Delegate Baker.
In that amendment, the realtor or RW, and the realtors, were they satisfied with the amendment?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I believe one of the representatives is on the call. Mr. Castelli, I believe, is on the call if they want to add anything, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Castelli, if you want to chime in, please feel free to do so.
Yes, the realtors were okay, and there were a couple other groups that also supported the amendments, including the Bar Association.
Thank you so much.
So does that mean you're supporting the bill?
Yes, supporting the bill with the
Okay,
amendments.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions on HB 1408? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Therefore, 1408 will also receive a favorable recommendation. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the work that we have. Hopefully till after crossover. Hopefully. Keep your fingers, your arms, and your eyes crossed. See you all later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ben.